Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here to share the speaker portion of our Connections Over Coffee gathering of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. Shelly Roman is speaking on self-care versus self-numbing. Shelly's life presented numerous challenges, including abandonment, violence, abuse, and addiction. Yet she sustained a 35-plus year career as an engineer and leader. Shelly brought order to the chaos of her life by developing the concept of sacred ground. She is committed to helping others heal and transform their lives as a speaker, author, and trainer, and Sacred Ground co-walker. You can find out more about Shelly's work at sacredgroundwalk.com. Shelly, thank you for being with us today. Start when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Jenny. What an honor to be speaking to this group of lovely, lovely ladies. About 12 years ago, my dad was in his mid-80s. I was visiting it with him one day, and he dropped a bombshell. Shell, I haven't slept properly for 65 years. What? See, my dad was just 17 years old when he volunteered to go into the service. He became a Marine and served in the Pacific Theater. He was at Guadalcanal, Okinawa, Peleliu. Some fun places like that. When he came back in 1945, after the war ended, his dad gave him 5 days to get himself in order. Go buy some new clothes, go to the dentist, go to the doctor, get checked out, and then you have to take over the family bowling alley. You see, my grandfather was an entrepreneur and he had many, many businesses. And so my dad's obligation was to take over the bowling alley. He never mentioned to his parents that my dad looked tired or he was having any kind of issues whatsoever. But he was numb. He filled that pain by just doing his obligations. There was nothing on his schedule for self-care. It wasn't even a word in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s that we talked about. And then in our household, my mother was a person who saw things and heard things that other people didn't. And she suffered from paranoia, a lot of delusions. And her disease progressed through the years. And by the time I was entering high school, she was walking around the house 24 hours a day with a gun. And she would be awake all night and often come in to wake me up. Shelly, come on, they're outside. You have to come help me. They're outside. And she would have me go out and sit in the bushes in the yard looking for the bad guys. Sometimes she would have me come to the window and listen. Do you hear them? Do you hear them? I didn't hear anything. And my dad finally confessed to me that sometimes she would come in where he was sleeping and take her handgun and rest it right on his forehead, cock the gun, and say, I should kill you. And he would just wait until she wandered away, go back to sleep, and then leave for work in the morning. You see, he told me that when he came back from the war, every time he had a bad thought, he would just push it out of his mind. Well, now we know that you're not really pushing it out of your mind, you're pushing it down into your body. So he was just numb to everything that was going on. He did not have that capability to do anything about the things that were going on around him. Now, in the 70s, there was really no hotline number to call and say, my wife seems to be mentally ill. What do I do? There was no World Wide Web to search on. He just kept filling his obligations. That's what he did, filling that gender role that was put upon him as a man born in 1925. My life as a little girl was filled with this violence. It included the violence from my mom. My brother was an abuser in my life. He sexually abused me. My mom told me that was always the woman's fault. Well, I wasn't a woman. I was just a little girl. And it couldn't have been my fault. I now know that my brother had been raped in Boy Scouts on a camping trip. Another issue no one could deal with. And so my brother and I both dealt with all these things that were going on with our own way of numbing. I poured alcohol on it. It worked like a charm. It kept me going. It made me survive that household and get out. And then my life continued. And I, like my dad, fulfilled all my obligations. I went to college, being the first person finally in the family to graduate and get a 4-year degree and go on to graduate school. I was successful in my career. I married. I had 2 sons. And I kept pouring alcohol on it. Well, in my later 30s, I was 37, the day came when I had to put down that bottle. The numbing was no longer working for me. Now, by that time, I still hadn't heard the term self-care. I mean, in the 90s, when I had sons, I remember teaching them about how to identify emotions and the variety of emotions, how to make their own decisions. Those were big things then. I never talked to my kids about self-care. It wasn't something that came up. But when I stopped pouring alcohol and stopped numbing, then I had to feel all that stuff. And what do I do with it? Oh my gosh. I don't want to swap it for something else. Eat at it, exercise at it, have sex at it. I just want to process it. Now, my story may have different elements than your story, but you have trauma too. You may not have been sitting in the mud on Okinawa, shooting and fighting for your life. You may not have been hit until you bled or had a gun pointed at you. But you've lost people you've loved. You've had medical that is not something that normally happens. I don't know about you, but I never once went to work and said, hey guys, I'm really suffering today. Never happened. I never woke up and said to my kids, Mom's really suffering today. I'm going to take a nap. Never. It was never a thought I had. My thought was, you're being weak. Come on, get this stuff done. You have money to make. You have children to raise. You have obligations to fulfill. Get it done. The thing about that self-critic, though, that I know at least one of us was talking about earlier, is that Dr. Neff's research shows that that self-critic elicits the same hormones in our bodies as actually being in the mud on Okinawa and fighting for our lives. That cortisol, the adrenal stuff, takes off. So we are feeling that. So think about it. Every time you talk to yourself with this horrible self-critic, and I do it, I am literally at war with myself. I am putting chemicals in my body worse than anything, worse than that red meat we talk about, worse than those artificial sweeteners we try to keep out. I think we would all do us a lot more good if we could turn off that self-critic. But how do we do it? In my article that I have in the current version of On Purpose Woman's magazine, I talk about a time when my husband and I were going through a trauma, and we were at the second phase of trauma recovery. The first phase is let yourself fall, where you acknowledge that something's happening, you are suffering, and you let yourself do it. Second phase I call inching along, which is going through life, trying to act normal, even when you're still in pain. Now, we've all been there. Somebody dies, we get through the work part. We get the funeral done, the memorial done. We write the thank you notes for the flowers, right? I'm sure you get those done right away. I know I did. I wouldn't want anyone to think bad of me. I wouldn't want my mother's friends to think I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing. And then you collapse again, and then you're up and you have to like eat a bowl of cereal or take a shower or go to work again. It's like the stuff that we have in our body. It's like this muscle memory that gets us through. We just keep doing it. We just keep doing it. But we're still hurting. So this day in about February 2020, my husband and I were at this inch along phase. And we had made it to a stage where we could get to the gym. This was before all the gyms locked out. And you can imagine it was hard to get there. We got to the treadmill, and I got on the treadmill, and I'm going. Oh. And for me, my pain is always right here in my stomach. It's like a knot. I know some people feel it in their heart or their head. Think about where you feel your pain. To identify it in your body. And so as I'm moving on that treadmill, that knot in my stomach starts loosening. Oh, that feels good. So I start moving faster. I'm running. Woohoo, this feels good. And I look over at my husband. I could tell he was feeling better too. I'm like, this is great. Okay, I'm recovered from this trauma. I'm just jogging. And then after about an hour, I can't do that anymore. And I step off the treadmill. That knot tightens up in my stomach again. And it makes my heart feel tight, and it pulls on my throat. And it pulls the tears right out of my eyes. See, I was just inching along. For a moment, I thought I was done, but I wasn't. But what I had discovered was something that gave me respite, because you can't feel that pain all the time. You have to have respite from it. But you also can't just ignore it forever, because then you get stuck and inch along. And like my dad, you're going all those years without sleeping. And like me, maybe you're pouring alcohol on it. And you don't have to wait till you're 85 to realize that you need help. You don't have to wait till you're 37 to realize you need help. So today in the breakout rooms, I asked you ladies to discuss what are your favorite self-care things in terms of taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Now, why is it important to decompose those? Well, because sometimes I could be having a physical trauma and I may not be able to go on that treadmill or take a walk in nature. I may have to just forego the physical stuff and focus on the emotional, the spiritual. I may be so in the middle of my trauma, my emotions are running rampant. I can't really take care of them except to get on the treadmill or take a walk. And they're all linked anyway, aren't they? I'm sure you notice taking a walk in nature, you're getting some exercise, but it also helps your heart and it helps you connect with God's church, the trees, the animals, and all that. I also encourage you to write these things down, or however you like to memorialize them. Maybe tell a friend. Maybe share it here in On Purpose Woman. So when you are in the middle of a trauma and you can't remember what brings you peace, we can remind you. I've worked with many women who cannot remember what brings them peace. A good example is a woman I was working with who really found a lot of peace doing the water aerobics at the gym. She really loved that. And she would talk about how much peace she felt in the water, how easy it was on the body for her. She really liked that. A few sessions later, she's in and she's talking about something that's really bothering her at work. And I said, hey, did you get to that water aerobics class? No, she couldn't even remember that brought her peace. And I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm really in the middle of the crap, when the trauma is so bad, I can't remember anything. And so I need to see it documented so I can remember, oh yeah, I like to go for a walk. One thing I discovered in COVID is that I get a lot of peace from cleaning my house. I had no idea. I had people cleaning my house for decades. And now I get so much peace and joy just from dusting, cleaning, and the way the house feels energetically when it's just the way I want it. See, we don't have much control over things that happen to us, but we do have control over our personal field, what we do to take care of ourselves. And we have a lot of influence on around our near field, who we spend time with, what our house looks like, how our desk is organized, what brings you peace with that. And so I would ask all of you to be a detective for the next few days and notice, oh, I really like it the way it feels when that counter is like that, or I like the way I feel when I drink a Diet Coke, or when I talk to my friend Carrie on the phone. Start noticing what truly brings you peace. Write it down. Get ideas from your friends. Write it down. Put it someplace so when you can barely function, when you're at the beginning of a trauma, a sacred ground walk, that you can look at that and try to remember what brings you peace. Last night, we had the honor of hearing Gail Dixon talk about the voice from her heart. And she talked about how it was a divine voice. It's our divine intention or our purpose is what I was getting out of that. If we stay stuck in inching along, if we stay numbing, right, then we're not going to get to that divine voice. It's not going to be able to come out. So how do you know when you're numbing? Someone asked earlier, well, I really like to play solitaire, right, on my phone. I'm a Best Fiends fanatic. Well, sometimes I play Best Fiends, and I do it while I'm watching TV or I'm just clearing my mind. But what if I started playing Best Fiends and like didn't eat dinner, never took that walk, didn't answer the phone, didn't come to my On Purpose Woman meeting? That's a pretty good idea. I'm using it to numb. And remember, we get so caught up, just like my dad, in fulfilling our obligations, being the person that society says we are supposed to be, that can be what we do to numb. I got a lot of feelings of self-worth in my career. I made money. People told me I was great. All I had to do was work and work and work myself to death and never once acknowledge that I was suffering. Remember, like Gail says, you are divine. You have a divine purpose. You can find that by uncovering it slowly, removing and healing the numbing, and start that with self-care today. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Shelly. That was so good. I'm going to ask all of you to unmute yourselves so we can do a real round of applause for Shelly. So clap and shout. And I'm going to just wrap up the live here and thank anyone who's watching this live or the replay. And if you'd like to join us for one of our 11 free Zoom gatherings each month or an in-person in Richmond, Virginia or Charlottesville, Virginia, comment below and I'll tell you how to do that. You can also go to our website, opwgc.com, and find out all about the community. Thanks, everyone.